Hello guys, my name is Ramesh Kartik. I have got 11 years worth of experience which includes software design and development, project management and blocker and tech speaker. So the what I'm good at and the reason why I'm here is to give you all a brief session on Angular 2 dependency injection today. So at the same time, maybe the one more reason could be connecting right people from various locations and finding great areas in a room together and discussing it. So of course, please note it on my Twitter ID, and I will show you my email ID as well at the end of this slide. So you can, if you have any queries, if I am not able to answer your any of your queries, please post it out. Probably I will revert you back in a couple of days or so. Okay. So let's welcome. I'm glad to see you so many people to participate this particular session, even though it is on a weekend. There is weekend mood. So I'm very well interested to take this up. I welcome you all. About C Sharp Corner, I would like to say a few words about C Sharp Corner. So C Sharp Corner is a wonderful platform for developers and IT professionals across the globe, where you can engage for yourself for updating yourself in various recent technologies, or where you can get clarified in any technical questions or career advice and lots more. So it doesn't mean that I need to give you a special words about C Sharp Corner. Hope you guys are living with C Sharp Corner every day, right? So in simple words, it's a one-stop shop where you can enjoy various flavors of different technologies. Okay, let's welcome. Thank you, Shisha Corner, for opportunity for making this a grand session. Okay, let's have a look at the today's agenda. So let's today's agenda. We are going to discuss about what is dependency injection in Angular. So basically, what is dependency injection? Why we really need about that? What exactly special things over here? So what exactly the dependency injection is? Why we have to do it everywhere in client-side frameworks or server-side frameworks? So basically, we just the first step. We are going to figure out what is actually why we need dependency injection. So in the second half, we will probably will come to know how DI has been DI means simple words I'm just saying. Okay, so how the DI has been implemented as a design pattern, how DI has been implemented as a framework, or how the DI has been implemented from a factory point. So it's a kind of a session where you can completely wrap up the dependency injection concept in Angular. Okay, I have concentrated only in Angular. Okay, and the final thing, then of course I will show you the source code, how and where, what are the things you need to do to take care of DI in Angular, and what other things you need to take it upon. So of course the final summary, then in case I definitely I will share you the JIT content where you can download all the DA stuffs and everything. Okay, fine. Okay, so let's have a look at this source code. So this is a simple employee object, right, with a constructor which has three objects instantiated over the constructor block. Can you able to figure out the problem with this source code? Can you able to figure out what is the problem over here? So it looks like great, right? So then what else the problem you see over here? Okay, let me give you that. So the problem is in this particular area. Okay, there are a couple of problems in this three lines of code, you believe it or not. Like the problem number one, I could say that this employee class is designed to take care of employee related operations like employee registration or day registration. Okay, so it's not a place to instantiate objects for allowance, salary and person details. You can see those things in constructor, which is not a recommended one. So this is one problem, right? So of course it's not a employee object's responsibility to create objects. You got it right. So then the one other problem would be before you one more problem is like before you create an employee object, the allowance, salary and personal details object also need to be created as it is in the constructor. So the employee object here is completely dependent upon these particular objects. So to create this particular object, so these things are has to be created, right, since it is lies inside the constructor. So the employee here is completely dependent upon these particular things, right? So that's what. So these are the two problems. Then one more thing, what if you got any changes in the object creations, let's say you need to pass some few parameters in the salary object, then again you need to come down the employee constructor to apply those changes. So there are a lot of changes. Is whenever the changes coming, then again you need to come down over here and do the changes, right? Definitely it's not a right approach, right? So these are the code. So you just remember it or not, I just repeat what are the problems over here. The one thing, first thing is responsibility. So employee class doesn't have any is has responsibility to take care of this particular operations, not it should not have any responsibility to create this particular objects, right? This is one particular problem. The one more problem, like so the employee is completely dependent upon these particular objects. So these objects has to get created to create an employee object. This is the problem. Then the third one is like before creating any object for these particular things, so if in future if we have any changes in creating the object, like extra parameter that goes, then again you need to come down over here and make changes. So this is not definitely a good approach. Then what else? Then other problem also, like dependency carrying. So you can find like one more problem could be like dependency carrying is something when an object takes one parameter in one of its methods, it doesn't need itself, but is needed by one of its objects. It calls to carry out its work. Let me give you a detailed example. Assume that we have a dependency chain like employee, then allowance and special allowance and medical allowance. Okay, so I'm just trying to say here, if you in the employee class you have one object, you are going to create it in allowance, then inside the allowance object other constructor you are going to create another object called special allowance, then inside the special allowance you are going to create another object called medical allowance. So it's dependency carrying actually. So what if, so do you think it is really needed actually? So that's what the dependency carrying is, keep building over every time. So dependency carrying is, again I repeat, is this is dependency carrying is like when an object takes one parameter in one of its methods, that doesn't need itself, but is needed by one of its methods to call out to carry its work. Say for example, one particular object, let's say I will give you a detailed example, like let's think medical allowance needs a property called config from employee object or allowance object. Okay, so though the special allowance doesn't need this particular property called config, it has to pass through it to medical allowance, which is not a right approach, right? So without dependency injection, we need to face these sort of issues, we need to face these sort of problems everywhere. So there is definitely that's not a right approach to go ahead. So whatever the values they have to pass it out, they will be automatically send it over to the constructor. So so the guy who sits in the middle, though he is really not required that particular object, he has to pass that particular object to this class or that chain of objects, right? So that is one particular problem. Of course, then other problem would be like so it's really hard to maintain. So definitely it's really hard to maintain. Of course, dependency carrying. So end of the day, again it comes to dependency carrying. Like dependency carrying creates a lot of noise in your code, making it harder to read and maintain. Component becomes vulnerable if you have lots of dependencies inside this class. So in this example, we have just seen only 2 to 3 dependencies, right? Assume it if we have 4 to 5 or 6 to, it's really hard to maintain. And also that if any dependency gets changes, then component might have to adapt these changes. So for instance, if I already told you, right? If a method signature of a dependency is changed, then component will have to change that method call. So it's really hard to maintain if you don't have it DA in your source code or something. Okay. So then of course it's hard to test as well, you believe it or not. So imagine like you have something, so this dependency carrying leads lot of problems in testing your, it leads support that how to maintain in you harder to test. So just imagine that you like to test the employee class. So that is again sorry. So again the same example that I'm going to take throughout this particular session, I'm going to take that only in employee class. So just imagine that you would like to test that employee class. How would you replace the salary and with the mock salary dependency in that code? So how are you going to use that? So when writing test, we want to test different scenarios that our code is used in, and each scenario needs its own configuration, right? So if we want to write testable code, of course we need a reusable code, right? So our code should work in any environment as long as the dependencies are satisfied. So you believe it or not, you just go ahead and go back to this code. If we have a lot of dependencies over that, it's really hard to test. So there is no such independency in this particular class. So you have to you shouldn't do any object creations over that. So of course it's really hard to go test any of these particular things. You are that's not that class should not have any dependencies to perform any an unit or other such tests. Definitely it's really hard to test as well. Of course then reducing the dependency also makes it easier to reuse in a different context. Reusable code are completely independent, and reusable code which should work in any environment independently. So definitely, and also if you reuse if you just if you haven't tried to reduce the dependencies, your life would be definitely harder to maintain the source code and also to reuse it. So it cannot be reused in all the contexts, I'm sure about that. So that is also there are a lot of problems in taking these particular things actually. So okay, let's see the other thing. Okay, so far we have seen like why do we need dependency injection. Now we'll just see about like what is dependency injection. So yeah, yes, with the help of DI, one can make a class testable, reusable, and readable source code, right? Which leads to easy maintenance of project. I agree with that. So what is DA then? So DA is, if you think about it, if you look at this particular statement or something, DA is a technique where one object supplies or provide dependencies of other object. It's very simple. So okay, if you look at the below example, earlier example as well, so it's a technique where one object just supplies the dependencies what he has actually required to that particular object. So you do not need to worry about that dependency object's creation. Someone who already aware of your dependencies will create and provide you on the right time. Okay, of course even in the again, if you take the employee object, it's not your responsibility to create the dependencies, right? So employee shouldn't object doesn't need to worry about that creating any object. So your responsibility lies to only to utilize the dependencies. So it's all about like it's technique where one object supplies the dependencies. It's not that I have to create my own dependencies to myself. It of course is not my responsibility. I'm just lending my own hands to others to give the dependencies to in my hand. That's it. So that's why the DA is a technique which has the reference of all your dependencies and provide you the instance at the right time. That's it. Okay, so far we have seen like why the dependency DA is actually required, what is DA and so far, right? So now we can implement the DA in simple design pattern. So DA can be implemented in very ways. Even in a simple design pattern we can implement it. So even in the framework we can implement it. A lot of other ways. Let's start with let's start to analyzing how DI can be implemented as a design pattern. Okay, so we can implement design pattern in numerous ways. Again, I'm saying one basic thing would be like you can implement DA as a design pattern. So this does not require any framework to register and supply the required dependencies, of course, right? So it doesn't need any frameworks or anything. Manually, you can provide the dependencies to the class during the object creation. In simple words, like you can say the DI implementation in a manual way. So it's all about like in even the employee class object. So there is no such framework is going to be used. That guy is going to receive the dependencies from the other class or other way, and it plays. So again, you just look at this source code now. So far this is how the dependencies is being tied up with this particular constructor. So how are we going to remove this? How are we going to remove the responsibility is the key now. See, so you look at this below code. Before that we have been using this particular code like allowance object creation, salary object creation, and personal detail objects. So all these creations are all been there. Now I'm just taking it out. I'm just resuming it. Allowance object, salary object, and percentage object. So this is also a DI actually. This is also a dependence injection. Only thing I'm just applied at the design pattern. I'm just completely removed it. I'm just completely, the object creation is completely removed out from this particular class. I already told you, right? So it's not employee class responsibility. It's someone. Why should I create the dependencies? Why need? So it's someone who has to calling this particular employee has to create objects and pass it out. So this object creation is completely moved out here actually. Okay. So, so that's what. So next thing is actually DE as a framework. So far we have seen like whoever want to create an employee object, they themselves create the dependencies object and pass them to the employee constructor, right? So now it's time to think about why the caller has to create the required dependency objects and pass them to the constructor. Is that the responsibility of the caller? Don't the caller think it's a extra responsibility? Yes, I would say, right? So it's not a responsibility of the caller anymore, right? So we don't want the caller create the dependencies. Would it be great that if someone else who listens the list of dependencies and create and provide dependency objects to the employee class when he thinks, is it so? Do you think it's wonderful to get that like? So yes, the framework will take care of this object creations on behalf of employee class and caller. Like so, again I repeat, I don't want to. I just want to give you a clear clarity on that. In the first section, like we removed the dependency over here and moved out into this particular constructor. The someone who calls this particular employee has to create this particular objects and send it out, right? So we just moved the responsibility out. That's what we did in the as a design pattern, right? In the second state, so even the first step, right? The caller one who calls this particular employee has to create this particular object, allowance, salary, and personal objects. So they have to create it and send it out to this employee object. Then only this particular object will get created. So that's what. Again, the next step. So in the DA as a framework, do you think? So that is also responsibility for the caller. Do you think the caller has to create all these objects to create an employee object? Of course, right? Don't the caller think that it's an extra responsibility? Yes, of course. They will think like it's hard to maintain for them actually. Sometimes even if you have if your employee class added one more responsibility, then we have to inform that caller again. Hey, one more dependency has been added. So that's not the right approach. Again, that's where the framework comes into picture. Okay, that's where the framework comes into picture. So this is where the framework DA framework comes in. So as we all know that Angular 1 has I do not know how many of you guys have experience in Angular 1 or so. Even I'm not told that much, but still from the DA context I really well know. So as we all know that Angular 1 has its own DA system which allows us to give explanation about the dependency objects to services and other components, and let the injector find out what dependencies need to be instantiated. So look at this code. So which shows like how we can annotate our employee class in Angular 1. Then we register employee as a service. Then we register employee as a service. And whenever we ask for it, we get the singleton instance of it. So without needing to take care of creating needed dependencies for the employee. Here you see the dependencies was created by the framework, right? So hope you got the point, right? So it's not something that someone who calls this particular employee has creating the dependencies. No, definitely it's not. So here you see the dependencies were created by the framework, not the caller or employee class. Hope you got it right. How the dependencies are passed by. So see, I'm repeat. So this is a basic class where you can have two parameters, sorry, two properties like employee name, employee code. So then you are actually telling the DI system itself, that is dependency injection system itself, was to create this, use this particular employee class, you have to consider these dependencies as well. So that is why it is injecting these particular dependencies, and allowance object, salary object, and personal object are the dependencies for are your dependencies. You need to take this here as well. So then you are converting this particular employee class as a service, right? Then after that app.service, that is after that you are just creating the service. Once you create that particular service, once you get the employee object in your hand, the framework actually creating the employee object with the required dependencies you want. So that is how Angular JS, that is Angular 1 actually, Angular JS actually doing the dependency injection earlier. Okay, now the situation is completely changed, but still this is how actually DA has actually grown up. So now, so hope you guys are clear on that. The how we are actually telling these are the dependencies, how we are actually framework. So far we have any such scholar or any person who doesn't say this is a dependencies. The framework will understand with this particular word. They will understand. Okay, allowance, salary, and personal are these dependencies for this particular employee object. Okay, when you're converting, when you're creating the service, when you're getting this employee object, that time itself these dependencies are being created and injected into that particular object. So you will be once you open this particular employee object, you will find out everything, not only the employee properties and as well the list of dependencies in your side. Okay, so that's all. So but still, if you think about in AngularJS, you have got a lot of issues as well. AngularJS DA is lots of issues. Definitely it is, DE is possible with Angular 1, but there are some problems is that the first one is like the dependencies are served as singletons. So whenever we ask for a service, whenever we ask for a framework, it is created only once per application. So that's not a good thing, right? So if you if you are actually trying to create one more time, then it doesn't make sense. So they will be providing only the singleton objects. Singleton objects, it will be throughout the application there will be one particular copy of object will be served to you. So that is the main problem in DA1, sorry, AngularJS. So the next one more thing is like a namespace collision. This is also one more issue on AngularJS actually. So where you can have, if we have a employee service and a third party extension also introduces service with the same name, then we have a problem. So that is a namespace collision problem is there. Then also if you see the third one, so if Angular 1 is Angular 1 DI, that is dependency injection, is baked into a framework, then there is nowhere for us to use it or there is no way for us to decouple as a standalone system. So you have to use it out only into the framework. There is no way to decouple it the DI system and use it outside. So that is completely baked with AngularJS. These are the limitations in AngularJS dependency injections. Now actually these items are being taken, and these are all completely solved in a rather different approach or in a different manner in Angular 2. So that's how that's where we are actually going now. So this is, now we are actually going how we are actually taking DI in Angular 2. So now the existing issues, whatever we have seen like namespace issue or a singleton or whatever it, right, that's been solved out, and we completely get into the Angular 2 in a fresh manner. So that's what we are actually going to discuss it. No, discuss it. Okay, so so let's see like let's see how these problems were overcome in Angular 2. So so when it comes to DI, right, so dependency injection, you need to remember these two steps. Okay, so that's very simple. Now actually I'm going to tell like how DI is configured, will be configured, how DI will be taken care in Angular 2. Okay, so you need to remember these two steps. Okay, the number one is like you have to register the dependencies with the framework. Okay, as I already told you, right, that is salary percentage. So you have to register the dependencies with your framework. That is point number one. Then the point number one is like either you instantiate it or the framework instantiate it when you need it. Okay, if you look at the below diagram, you can see three things. Okay, one is this injector, and the other one is provider and the dependency object. So provider is an agency, like is a consultant kind. Okay, so is an agency by which we register our dependencies that need to be injected. We register over there. As with all DI frameworks, we have to inform them about the dependencies we want to inject somewhere. So Angular 2 will do this job by specifying providers. Okay, so that's where the provider comes in role. So provider is an agency, is a one who takes care of all the dependencies that particular class or all the list of dependencies to be carried out. Okay, see, he is the one who keeps a list of the dependencies you want. Okay, so you know, right, and basically in any framework, anything, anywhere you go and implement DI, so you have to register your dependencies first. That's the primary step actually. So in this case actually, also in Angular 2 you have to register it using providers. You have to register it. That's how it actually gets started, by which we register our dependency that need to be injected, right? So once you register, then it's time for you to think about inject it in somewhere. So inject it in somewhere in the employee object or somewhere else, like, okay. So injector object, it provides us a mechanism by which the desired dependency is instantiated. So injector is object is normally exposes some APIs, okay, to normally exposes some APIs to create instances of dependencies. Okay, so then the final one is the dependency. Then dependency object, the dependency object, you know very well, it's type of which object should be created. So I think you have to think about, like, the dependency object is something, the allowance, salary object and person details, those things, right? So those are all the dependency objects, and the provider is something where we are going to register it. So where you are going to tell the framework, boss, these are all the list of dependencies that I need this particular project. Okay, so the injector is someone who creates the instance. Okay, let me give you a detailed example, then probably will have a clear idea on that. So okay, that's what I already told you, right? That's what the same has been listed over here. So injector is someone who creates the so far the first step, this would have been come up here actually. First, the provider is someone who registers our dependency that need to be ingested. Why I'm again I'm telling you, it's this is the thing, this is the core things that you have to understand, so that is will help you to give a clear code on that, where are the areas that you need to where you have to concentrate on creating it of the AI. That's it. The first thing you have to register. Then the second step, like, you have to create a injector or someone to get the instance of this particular class. Then of course that's a dependency object. That's what you expect will be will come out. Okay, so let's do some coding. Okay. Okay, now we have got a fair idea, right? Fair idea on DI, right? So I think hope you guys have clear fair idea on that. So let's see this particular source code and how this concept so far we have studied is translated to a code. Okay, so you have you able to figure out, like, resolve and create function. So the resolve and create is a factory function. Okay, so resolve and create is a factory function which takes a list of providers and creates an injector. I already told you, right? So provider is someone who just want to register the list of dependencies. See that these are all the contract employee is also one provider. Allowance also, sorry, it shouldn't be the contract employee. Allowance should be on provider. So salary is a provider, percentage is provider. So these are all something dependent for this particular employee. Okay, so to create this particular object, A allowance and B salary and C personal details, these things is really required. This employee is completely dependent upon these particular things. So so please excuse me for diagram displacement. This arrow shouldn't be come here. This arrow should mark it out this particular place. So that's all. So the resolve and creates a factory function. I can repeat, it's a factory function which takes the list of providers and creates an injector. So which takes the list of providers and creates an injector. So okay, so provider is nothing but I again repeat, it's an agency which registers the list of dependency. Okay, this statement you can tell the DA framework that these are all the dependencies you need to consider. Okay, again I repeat. So this statement tells DA framework was these are all the dependencies. These are all the dependencies you need to consider when instantiating an employee object or or contract employee object, whatever it's so. Okay, so this is where the provider comes into play. So injector has an then again injector. So injector has an API function like the get, which returns that instantiated object. Okay, so you can ask me, like, how come the injector knows which are all the dependencies, what are the order of dependencies to instantiate. So let's see that. So again, I pray to hope you guys get a fair idea on that. Like you need to remember two things. One thing is provider. Provider is where you need to register all your dependencies. So allowance, salary, and percentages. All these are the dependencies to contract employees. So the contract employee is completely dependent upon this particular thing. That is where we are telling that dependency injection framework must to create this particular object. These are all the list of things are dependent to this particular class. Okay, so after that, this is one particular part. So far we have registered it, so far we have communicated the DA framework. Now it's time to create a object, right? So end of the day we need that object, right? So that is what something which goes here. So once you, after that, once you see injector dot get of the contract employee, this particular object will be created. So you can, now you can figure out like your you can recap your our existing example which we have already discussed in the beginning, right? So the employee salary details, so that those differences are already been packed inside the constructor. Okay, or after that, then someone has to, who creates that employee object, they have to create that object and pass it out, right? So then the responsibility moves from employee to caller. Then after that, then it comes to framework. So now, so nobody is actually creating it, right? So it's actually the framework who took the responsibility. Framework says, okay, I took the responsibility of creating object, you just tell me what are the dependencies. That's what we have done so far. Okay, anyway, let me show you the source code as well. Okay, so this for the injectors. Okay, so that's what. Now I have asked you another question, like, so we have told everything, but how come the injector know? How come the injector know which are the dependencies? There are so many things are there. The so many things are right, right? If I can A B C, I can list out like up to Z. So many, I can list out 100 dependencies over here. How come injector no? So this is a object I need to be created. So these are the list of dependencies. You got my point, right? One class may have like 3 dependencies or 4 dependencies. So injector should have a knowledge about on how much dependencies are there particular class, right? So that is where this particular code comes. Okay, so if you just look up this particular thing, so like thing like look at the below code, lower part, right? So one second, yeah. So this yeah, so look at this particular code. We tell the DI that the first constructor, so this is a statement like we are actually informing the DI, that is dependency injection, like, so the first constructor, the constructor in the first parameter should be of type allowance. So in the second of type salary, and third of type personal details. So now DI actually, that is dependency injection, can read this information and conclude what are all the dependencies needed to create an object contract employee, like. So you got the point, right? You understood now, you got the point, right? So we have to place it like at inject of allowance object at inject. So this is where you have to place it in your class, anyway. I will show you the complete project some after this particular thing. So this point will give you much information to the framework, like which are all the dependencies actually needed for this particular object to be created. Assume that this is a class employee. Okay, this is a class employee, this is a constructor of the class employee. For that, okay, we will by seeing this inject keyword, okay, he just come down and look that, okay, inject keyword is there, what are the objects, allowance object, okay, what other object, salary object, then personal object. And then suddenly he went into that provider list, he'll take this particular list, then creates the instance of this particular thing. Now the injector got the knowledge, like what are all the things need to be created, right? So by seeing the constructor, injector will come to know, injector will conclude, okay, then will creates the instance from this particular function. I think you guys got a fair idea on that. Again, I will give you a brief summary, like first step, you need to register the list of dependencies. For a employee class, we have 3 dependencies, that is first dependency named allowance, salary, and personal details. And then what is the class that we are actually, for what class we are actually creating thing. So this has to be registered first inside the provider. Okay, so this is a provider syntax. Okay, the second step, you have to you have to create the instance with the help of injector. So injector know injector should know what are all the dependencies for this particular object to be created. So that actually by using this inject keyword, wherever it is mentioned in inject keyword, you'll come to know, okay, these are all the dependencies. Okay, we'll take it out from this providers and creating instance for you. Okay, anyway, let me show you the source code. Probably at that time will give you the clear idea on that. Okay, so that's what this is how we are actually injecting. This is where the place we are actually injecting this particular thing. So see, this particular class, these particular objects, it's not been created either by this particular class or a caller or anyone. Only the framework will understand your needs and creating instances on that and supplying it accordingly. Okay, yeah, this is another this is an alternative. So this statement's alternative is like or longer syntax maybe is like this one. So again you can find the resolve and create. So resolve and create you can also give in this detailed manner, like provide contact employee, use class. So it's something like we can give some more extra information to the DI, like what is the class that you are actually looking, how, what type you are actually providing it. So I am just actually asking asking the DI to provide a salary object using this particular class. So that's what it is. So both the same. So this particular thing and this particular statement are both the same. If you want a shorter approach, you go with this. If you want the detail and one thing, you have to go with this particular approach. Okay, so this is how actually DA has been implemented as a framework. Okay, so now next two more things. So far we have seen like what is DI and why we have to implement DI. So how we have implemented DI in design pattern, how we have implemented DI as a framework, right? Now as a second step, we have seen like DI as a factory. Okay. Yeah. So one thing like so far we have seen like the contract employee object have. So I think can you guys mute yourself, please? Someone is actually unmute at the mic. Can you please, unless otherwise, if you have any specific questions or anything, please mute yourself. It will be good for everyone, right? Okay. Okay. Thank you. So now actually we are seeing like so far we have seen like the contract employee object have some dependencies. Okay, again I repeat, which can be supplied by framework to instantiate the contract employee object, but there may be a situation like we need the object to be injected based on certain conditions, right? So there may be a situation like we need the object to be injected based on certain conditions. For instance, based on the employee type selection in the UI, we need a contract employee object to be created or a high level employee object to be created or low level employee object to be created. You got the point, right? Let's discuss in detail. So so far we have seen like how we can inject, how we can receive our dependencies to our particular constructor. Okay, it's like, on other words, how we can inject ourselves the dependencies needed. So now it's time to think about, in certain situation I need this set of dependencies, I need this set of object to be created. In certain situation I need other set of objects to be created. For example, like I already mentioned, right? If if an user is actually selecting this particular high level employee, then I need other object has to be supplied by the framework. If an user is select some other thing like a low level employee, then DI should act as a factory and creating that creating object as per the user selection, then providing it. So that is what actually we are going to discuss it now. Okay, so have you able to see this particular source code? Yeah. So if you think that so assume there is a factory service in our project. Okay, I'm just going in a little fast. So assume that there is a factory service in our project. Their job is to supply a different flavors of an object based on the request we made. So I already told you, right? So if the type of the request from UA is a plain employee, the factory service will provide you the plain employee object. If the type of request from UI is a high level employee, the factory service will provide you a high level employee object. So the factory service here is to provide you a different types of object based on your request type, based on the user request type. So you got the point, right? So you look at this particular source code, you can clearly understand like so if the user is actually selecting uh, excuse me, can you please mute yourself? Somebody has unmuted it. Can you please? So that it's not fair to keep getting sounds. Can you please? I don't know. I just want to figure out who is the person. Yeah, thank you, Shaili. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Yeah. So if you think this particular code, right? So if the type of employee that the user selected is employee, okay, so that factory service will provide you one set of employee object. So if it is of another type, then I will be returning this particular thing. So this particular factory employee is going to be injected somewhere, okay. This has to be injected somewhere. That is why I put an injectable keyword. Okay, you got it. So and so any class that is going to be injected with Angular is to decorate injectables with a add injectable keyword. Okay, so it means like this this factory employee service is going to be injected somewhere. That is why we have decorated it with injectable keyword. So again I repeat like so based on the user selection, this particular factory employee going to be injected somewhere. If the user is selected is like a plain employee object, so this particular condition will provide you a employee object, or otherwise if user selected the higher level employee, this particular factory employee will return as a high level employee. Okay, then whatever this particular class, that is this particular thing will return this being injected and also being exported. So I hope you know, right, what is an export keyword. So export is something like which is similar to public keyword in C sharp. So if anything, if you want to export it, if anything you want to make it visible to outside world, then you have to use the export keyword. Okay, so for the class alone, not for the functions. Okay, so that is how you need to decorate it out yourself. So I'm just decorating this, my class is injectable means it, this is the one which is injectable to anywhere whoever is actually subscribing it or using it out. Okay, yeah. So look at the next thing. So this was this injectable decorator, and these are the factory objects which is actually creating it. Okay, so you just sorry. So look at the next step actually. So far we have seen like listed the conditions and providing the objects, and we have injectable keyword we have used. And next step we have to tell like we have to register the provider to use it in our component when we need the factory service objects. So I already told you, right, provider is someone who wants to is one who are actually telling the DA like these are the dependencies. So in this particular class, this particular component, I'm just telling like boss, this is a provider. So this is the factory employee is the one which I really need it. So that is why I placed in the providers keyword. So you have to close braces and you have to mention your, so you remember, right, this is a factory employee object. Okay, so this is where the place where you have created a factory service, then this is where the place you are going to inject it there, this is where the place where you're going to inject it. That's why we are telling the DI these are all the dependencies. So for me to use this particular component, my dependency is factory employee, please create out the factory employee. That is what you are telling the DI. Okay, so that is why we are putting like providers colon then factory employee. Okay, then hope you figure out could able to see the last line. So this dot factory employee object that create of this dot employee type. So 1 second, sorry that so if you see that the create, this particular create function will be called based on the supply thing you passed. So this particular object will get created. So this employee, the factory is actually played as a service for you to get a different set of objects. So far we have seen like how the dependency injection has been implemented as a framework, as a factory. Now it's time to it's a final one, like we have seen like so far we've seen like the certain objects are injected into other object. Factory service too injected in a different component. We injected objects, we injected factory. If any class is dependent upon a particular object or factory, that's fine, we can inject it. How about a value need to be injected into a component? How about a constant value need to be injected across all the components in the module? Okay, let's have a look at that. So that is what the provider instruction is. Provider instruction is all about supplying the constant values which is really needed across the application, which needs to be injected across the application. So that is where the provider instruction comes into play. Okay, so this is quite simple actually. I don't want to take much time on that. It's very simple. So here you can see a component named random component, right? So the random component in which the constructor gets injected. You are able to figure out like this particular constructor gets injected random number every time. Okay, so using the component decorator, the values are being rendered to the page every time. Okay, this particular value being rendered on the page every time. So where do we get the random value? So I'm just making it in my component. So this random value has to be displayed in my web page. Okay, so that is why this particular component has been created. The purpose of this particular component is to render this particular value, that is value, over the web page, right? So but where do we get this particular value? As usual, the provider is the one who provides the random value every time. As usual, the provider is the one. So the provider can be placed over the component or the module library. So if you place it in module, it can be accessible across all the components. If you want to use it only one component, then you have to use it in your own. Okay, in this case, like I have this particular line of code is actually I'm listed out independently as for the site when the considering this particular slide, but in the actual source code you can't find out over here. So we can place it either of the way. One, we can straight away place it inside the component, that is this particular basis you can tell like provide this particular value this particular value in a manner in the way of random. So the random will be providing you. So the one, so it's again, it's at the end of the day, like I already told you, right? The provider is something we are actually telling the DA these are the dependencies. So here the dependency is it's a variable, sorry, it's a property, it's a constant, it may be like. So so that is how actually, so we can either place it inside the component if you want to use it only for this particular component, or either if you want to use it across all the components, then you have to place it in the module library. So I'm not going to detail on modules and components. Hope you guys know very well about that. Modules, of course, it's a collection of components. Okay, so if you place it this particular line over the module, then that can be accessible across all the components. Okay, so this is why thing. Then one more example, like the other example, like if you see the other example where you get the API link data from the provider. So you want some data to be populated across all the components, then you want to be placed in the module library. They can simply place provide API data. This is the link. So by simply you put that inject and apply data, as soon as this particular component gets instantiated, you will get this particular value. Okay, it can be used across everywhere if you place it in the module. So these are all the things. Anyways, let me show you a glance on the source code. Okay, so before that I got a couple of messages. So what is this in between brackets after class? So Permjit, I couldn't able to figure out what brackets that you're asking. So you are talking about this particular brackets. So this is how the syntax that you need to follow. Okay, I'll just correct me wrong. I hope you are asking this particular brackets alone. So if it is of this here, like this is the place where you need to, if in case of providers, you have to use it out. Your what is the how you need to get the value, and what in what format and the what way you in what form you need that particular data. That is how you need to place it in this particular bracket. But if you go with this particular thing, like what are the components, what are the what is it, what are the things that you are going to use it out from this particular Angular core or something. So that is been actually take note from this particular Angular core, that is import. I'm going to import in this particular component and inject from this particular thing. Okay, so that's what you are actually asking. So in their example of DA in factory, okay, let me create it. Hope you are asking this particular thing. What is this in between brackets after class? After class. Oh, this class here, this bracket you are talking about. So that is something below one. Yeah, this is one.
Yes.
The one you're talking about, this particular bracket and this one, it's not a below, it's one we need to create for this class, right? So there are two, one we are actually creating it, this particular function, sorry, condition, then these are the condition, then this particular function you are creating, then it is one for the class. 22nd, let me go. So this bracket you are talking about, am I right? Am I right, Venkat?
Yes.
Am I right? This bracket you are talking about. So, so this, I hope so. They are asking this particular thing. So this is quite similar. It's a, it's a it's a syntactical sugar of component syntax actually. So whenever you want to declare any component, you have to go this way only. So you have to open brackets and close brackets. In that you can open braces and close braces to declare the providers, where is the template URL. All these things has been listed over here. That's where it is actually using. So can you show slides from starting once? uh, so from starting from on, it's highly possible because it's taking everyone time, Mr. I just sharing this particular slide to you so that you can take it from the JIT link. Okay, how many frameworks they can, you can uh, DE has its own framework. Okay, so you can use it, that framework. So you don't need to think about the outside one. So that the one which is completely baked as part of Angular 2, so you can use it out. So if you go for other C Sharp, I think a lot of Unity framework and other frameworks, a lot of other frameworks is there. But in the case of Angular 2, there is one which is all coming together, coming baked into Angular 2 is the one is highly recommendable one. Okay, let's have link up the, let's show you the source code finally. Okay, so here like okay, see, this is a contract employee. Okay, I already told you, right? To create this particular contract employee, I have to use inject keyword, right? In the constructor, I'm just mentioning, please inject allowance, salary, and person details objects. Okay, that is how I'm just created. So for, so in the export class contract employee, I'm being injected. So before coming to injection, you're asking me where is the provider, right? Let me show you. This was the place. So this, so so this was the place like where you can provide, where you can register your dependencies. So provide contract employee, then using the class contract employee. So provide allowance using the class employee. So see, both are the same syntaxes to register your dependencies. These are the list of dependencies here to create a contract employee. So in the contract employee, then again you have to mention it like, so where is the, which are all the list of dependencies using the inject keyword. Okay, okay. So I think I can share you this particular source code. You can have a look on that. Meanwhile, then other thing like a factory service, uh, factory, no, that is what. So here I'm just showing like I'm just injecting this particular factory as well. Like based on the condition, it's just returning employee or a high level employee. So can you? Somebody is trying to talk. So then again when you want to use it out in your place, then again you have to use it like 1 second. Ah. So this is where the place again you have to tell this the factory employee is the one you need it. You just simply use this particular object and creating the employee. So this is the one more example that I can show it out. Then other than that, after that I already told you, right, what are all the constant values that you need, what are the constants that you can easily take it out. So if you look into that modules, you can find that provide random values has been populated over here. It means like this random and the API data can be accessible across anywhere. So it's a one-step container, one-stop shop container where you can store all these data that you need in your project. Then probably it is a module library, right? If you look into this data component or someone, so you can simply, sorry, what is the time zone component. So if you take the time zone component, you can use that particular API data. Say that you can use, if you want to use it only in your component, then you have to provide in that particular component alone. So if you want to be used if from across the library, then you no need to place it over provider keyword inside the component. You can simply receive it. So since you're already declared in module library. Okay, hope you got the point, I believe. So yeah, so far I'm done almost. Anyways I will, yeah, I will definitely share you the source code. Please 1 second. Yeah, please. So if you have any such questions, please raise over here. I probably will be available for other 5 minutes. In case if you have got any such questions, even after the session, please write over here. It's my Twitter ID and Gmail ID. So this is where the place where you can get the entire copy of the source code, whatever you have so far. Unfortunately, it's not possible to walk through each and every line of source code since time is very limited. So even that level of detailed walkthrough is even really not required for you guys, as you guys are experienced one. You can easily figure it out with a simple set of codes that are there, snippets that have already been shared. So anyways, in this particular link you can download all these stuffs with this particular thing. I think you can get a 1 or 2 projects alone. Please don't consider about the UAI part. So UAI part I haven't concentrated much on this particular source code. So it's only I just use it to only to display the data or something like that. So if you just think about you just concentrate only on the Angular part. Okay, so do we have anything else?
Ramesh,
Yeah, please.
is it possible like you can arrange one session for testing with Jasmine Karman and Istanbul?
Sorry, can you come again, boss? Can you
I said like, is it possible like you can arrange one session more in future for JavaScript testing with Jasmine, Karma, and Istanbul?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I will take it into point. Meanwhile, I will recommend you to. Yeah, okay, this one you listed it right with Jasmine Karma and instable word coverage. Okay, okay, I will take it out. Thanks for your recommendation. I will take this point. Probably I have other plans to mm, do some sessions. Probably I will take this one. Meanwhile, if you have any recommendation, any feedback or anything, please please reach out in my email ID whatever I have found out. So
Thank you, thank you.
I will definitely share you the GitHub link here. So probably yeah, you can download it, the entire content from here. And in case if you have any questions, you can please come back to me. And this is my email ID. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed the session. Thank you very much for the time you've been here, though it is on a weekend. I'm definitely looking for it for other such sessions in that. And please provide if any have any feedback, anything, please write it to me. And thank you very much. Thank you, Shisha, for your corner, for the opportunity that you are there. That you provide over here. Thanks for your time. Thank you guys. Have a nice weekend. See you. Bye.
Thanks, Ramesh.
Thank you.